It was a dominant day for Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys in more ways than one. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today, as I am every Monday, by Locked On NFL expert Alex Clancy. I am ready for a clash with Clancy. On today's episode, my worst of the week goes to Bryce Young in Carolina. The Bengals are infected by the disease of me. And of course, we'll start with the domination from the Dallas Cowboys. Before we get into it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here with the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Make sure that you tune in later for the Barbershop with Tony Wiggins as he chops up some of the best NFL conversation you're going to find. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Alex, the Dallas Cowboys get an extension done with Dak Prescott, and then they go out there on the field and absolutely dominate the Cleveland Browns with a 33-17 margin. We're going to hear from Landon McCool of Locked On Cowboys about that extension for Dak Prescott.
Deadlines make deals. And for the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott, they have struck a deal that makes him the richest player in NFL history. Hi, I'm Landon McCool, and the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott have said, yeah, here we go, on a new 4-year, $240 million contract with $231 million guaranteed, making him not only the richest quarterback in NFL history, but the richest player in NFL history. And this has been a contract that has been long coming. And for folks that have been keeping the faith and saying that this deal was going to get done, the deadline kept on getting closer and closer. And now we are just hours before the Cowboys kick off in Cleveland against the Browns to start their season. And an announcement has finally come that the Dallas Cowboys and the Joneses have agreed on a deal. This is obviously a huge news, so make sure you're checking us out on the Locked On Cowboys podcast for the postgame and for more on this.
Okay, listen, this is exactly what the Cowboys needed to do. There was drama all offseason in Dallas, and it's almost like Jerry Jones wanted there to be. He wanted the Cowboys to be a talking point all offseason, and the only way for there to be any drama around the Cowboys is for those deals not to get done. He gets CeeDee Lamb done right before the season starts, gets Dak Prescott done literally hours before their game kicks off against the Browns, and then the Cowboys go out there and absolutely roll the Cleveland Browns, who are a great defense. Alex, I got to say, I was worried about the Cowboys coming in the year, but with all this drama now behind them, I think the Cowboys are right back in a spot where they can be a contender in the NFC, and if things break right, they could be a Super Bowl contender as well. Is that a week one overreaction, or do you feel like things are kind of solved in Dallas now as well?
Yes, to both. I mean, so you look at it this way. The Cowboys have always been best under Dak Prescott when they run the ball well and play defense, where Dak can be that elite game manager that Super Bowl winning teams have. And what we saw today was just that. They played really good defense, 6 sacks, 2 interceptions. Ezekiel Elliott, 40 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Like, I know it's not a lot, but they were able to control the game, control the tempo through their defense and through their rushing attack. Dak didn't even break 200 yards passing. So when you look at what they gave him, it's because of what he can do when they have a good defense and when they have a good rush attack. And yeah, I think it's a home run all around, maybe a bit of an overreaction. But if they play defense the way they're capable of and the way they run the ball and milk clock the way they're able to, sure, 12 wins, NFC East title, and then you never know what's going to happen in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And CeeDee Lamb, again, not a game-breaking game, but 5 catches, 61 yards, Really good connection there. The Dallas offense did what they had to do with how well the rest of their team played in that game. But speaking of week one overreactions, the biggest overreaction of the week may have come before the game's even kicked off down in Miami with Tyreek Hill. Let's hear from Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins about the situation with Tyreek Hill before the game.
You can do a lot of things right playing the Miami Dolphins, but then blink and look up and you have a couple of explosives and you lose a football game. The number one takeaway that you need to walk from week one, Jacksonville, Miami. It is always better to win ugly than to lose pretty. Or win pretty in this case. Ugly win for the Miami Dolphins. But they pushed the right buttons down the stretch. And I do not think that should be overlooked. I do not think that is something that we should take for granted. This was a team that was down 14-0 in the first half. Could not do anything right. Perfect summary of the day that was to come for the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill is temporarily apprehended on his way to the stadium for a traffic citation, put in handcuffs, face down on the pavement, in an incident that led to the officer already, the local police sharing and reporting and releasing a statement that one of the officers in question has been placed on administrative leave while they conduct an investigation.
Truly an insane situation in Miami before the game. Looks like everything's cleared up, but the only thing that might be more insane is Tyreek Hill's ability to play football. Because like Kyle Krabs said at the beginning of the video there, literally you blink and Miami is back ahead. They were down all day long to Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville Jaguars are notorious chokers. They do this all the time. This is just who Jacksonville is. But Kyle's point is well represented that literally like that, in the snap of a finger, Tyreek Hill makes a big play, and now all of a sudden Miami has all the momentum back. He's that good of a player, and it goes back to what we talked about last year. If anybody ever wins MVP and it's not a quarterback, it better be Tyreek Hill because he's that good.
You know, coupled with him now with Devon Achane, 2 home run hitters from 2 completely different positions, how do you stop both of them? And we saw both of them go nuts today. And you're right.
And Waddle.
I mean, the 80-yard touchdown catch and run, it seems so effortless. Like Tua doesn't have to do much. He has to throw it to his spot, have Tyreek get there first, and let the kid go. You know, and that's something that is wildly beneficial for a team that is severely underperformed late in seasons and in the playoffs. And now when you couple their rush attack with the 8 running backs they have now, on top of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill atop the mountaintop, I mean, this team could make a deep AFC playoff push like any team that's on that same rung as them.
Well, I think they need home field advantage if so, because the reality here is, and we see it all the time, we've seen it too many times to discount it. Tua doesn't play as well in the cold weather. So if Miami could secure home field advantage and really make a push, that's probably the best way to accomplish that. But like with Dak Prescott, with Tua, if you don't have Patrick Mahomes, you need to have good defense. You need to have a good cast of characters around the quarterback. Basically, it's Patrick Mahomes and then everybody else. And speaking of that, a team that maybe doesn't have what they need to have around their quarterback right now is the Cincinnati Bengals, who have been absolutely infected by the disease of me, and they laid an egg at home in week one against the New England Patriots. We're going to talk about that and more. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. First, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to play daily fantasy sports. There's a reason they have over 5 million active members. It's the #1 daily fantasy sports app of all time. Some are saying. Either way, Prize Picks is so easy to play. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players, and you say whether that player is going to do more or less than the projection that Prize Picks has. Patrick Mahomes, 200 passing yards. Christian McCaffrey, 75 rushing yards. These are just examples, but all you do is pick 2 to 6 players and say more or less. And you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. I'm telling you, you're not going to beat that anywhere else. I love Prize Picks. You will too. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's episode is also sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that you'd love to learn? As an adult, do you make enough time to learn new things like you should? Or is that something that you just lost in childhood? Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at any age. I've worked with BetterHelp. It was a fantastic experience. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, better give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Alex, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the domination by the Dallas Cowboys, getting the Dak extension done. Talked about Tyreek Hill and his experience in Miami today that led to a big comeback win for the Dolphins. Now we got to talk about what might be the biggest disappointment of the day, and it's in Cincinnati with the Bengals. And our guys Jake Liscow and James Rapine had something to say about the disappointing loss.
But the other part of this, and let's call it what it is, everyone in that locker room for the past month and a half has talked about at one point or another wanting to get off to a fast start. And that start needed to be a win over the Patriots, whether it was 17-16 or 71-16. They needed to get a win today, and they didn't get a win. They looked lost at times on offense, and it's unacceptable, quite frankly. And it's one game, but for a team that was trying to win the second opener of the Zach Taylor era, the second opener of the Joe Burrow era, Zach 1-5 now in openers, Joe 1-4 in openers. It's not a good look, and especially when you look at the schedule and you see who's looming. So it's a rough day here at Paycor Stadium.
And it should be. What an embarrassment. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals are supposed to be Super Bowl contenders. The Cincinnati Bengals are a team that should be able to rival the Chiefs or at least give the Chiefs some competition. They're the only team to really successfully defeat the Chiefs at any point in time during the Patrick Mahomes era. So for the Bengals to come out and lay this egg against the New England Patriots, Alex, for me, it's the disease of me. All right. The Bengals went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Now it's time for everybody to get paid. Joe Burrow gets paid. Now T. Higgins wants paid. They're like, no, we're not going to pay T. Higgins. All right, well, you're going to pay Jamar Chase. That's why you're not paying Higgins. Oh, no, we're not going to pay Jamar Chase. He's saying that he might not play. He hasn't practiced. He comes to practice. He leaves again. I'm limited. I don't know if I can play out there. Trey Hendrickson was trying to request a trade earlier in the offseason because he wanted more money. The Bengals are being consumed by the disease of me right now. They're playing selfishly. There's a selfish vibe in that locker room, in my opinion. And I think Cincinnati better get this thing on track because I think this week one loss, you don't want to overreact. Cincinnati's still going to be in the playoff picture. Cincinnati's still going to be fighting. But little things like how this locker room is right now because of all the money conversations, that can keep a team from reaching their potential. And it would be an overreaction to say that the Bengals are going to fall apart. But I think it's not an overreaction to say that they are infected by the disease of me and all that contract stuff has hurt their team.
For sure. I mean, and tell me something. When has Joe Burrow been really relevant since that Super Bowl loss?
They haven't
been injured. And you know what? I understand that it's not necessarily fair because, they've lost pieces. They got rid of Joe Mixon this year. So they didn't want to pay him. Tyler Boyd is going to be a massive.
But they added
loss.
Pieces. Right. They've added pieces too.
Yeah, but it hasn't really encapsulated what they were at their best a couple of years ago. People are living this Uncle Rico in '82. I used to be able to throw a football a quarter mile. Like that's not this. The Chiefs have played tougher and harder than the Bengals did, and they've won 2 Super Bowls in a row. Okay, so the whole thing about they beat the Chiefs a couple years ago doesn't matter. This team has no identity. This team is lost. This team, the coaching is going to come into question very quickly if they don't figure this out by mid-year. But I'll tell you what, Tyler, when you draft Jamar Chase instead of Penny Sewell, you're making a choice. Mm-hmm. The choice is that offense needs to work, and then you're going to pay Jamar Chase the second he is eligible when he wants to get paid. Penny Sewell,
that's how important it is.
Number 1 graded right tackle in the NFL last year. Okay,
got paid right away.
They made a choice, and this is the choice they have to deal with, and then you have to follow through with that choice, and the Bengals are not doing their part after drafting Jamar Chase. And this is part of the mess that they're in now.
And the Lions paid Penei Sewell. He lived up to it, and they paid him.
Yep.
Same timeline, same class. The Bengals are being cheap, and it's starting to make the players mad, and it's starting to affect the locker room and their want to. It's the disease of me in Cincinnati for real. But in the AFC North, the team leading after week one, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they did it. We talked about it on the show last week, but the Pittsburgh Steelers go into Atlanta with Justin Fields, who's from Atlanta, who the Falcons could have traded for, and Arthur Smith, their previously fired head coach, and they upset Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. An incredible turn of events. Let's hear from Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers.
Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast, giving you your instant game reaction to the Steelers' 18-10 win over the Atlanta Falcons with Justin Fields as the starter. As we said on our Friday episode, there was some question about Russell Wilson. How would he play? Would he play with his calf injury reappearing in the middle of the week? The answer was a game day test of seeing how Russell Wilson felt. He was made the emergency third quarterback. Justin Fields goes in, gets the start, and the win for the Steelers. Now, did Justin Fields do anything to actually maybe hold on to a starting job for the Steelers? I don't think so. 17 of 23, 158 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions. Ultimately, this was a game where the Steelers said, hey, backup quarterback, go in and don't lose the game. Make a couple of big plays. I thought there were some good passes down the field that he made. One called back that shouldn't have been. All in all, I think Justin Fields did enough to show, hey, he's a good backup quarterback. The Steelers need to see more. We'll talk more about that on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Tune in for the Sunday night episode.
Alex, this is exactly why I said the Steelers were making the playoffs this year. This is exactly why I believed in the Steelers, because they're so good on defense and they're so well coached by Mike Tomlin that even with Justin Fields for a couple of games, or even if it's Justin Fields all year, they can find a way to win. This is literally exactly it. And for Arthur Smith to go back into Atlanta when they got all these new vibes and new coaches, new quarterback, added all these veterans on defense, like just an incredible win for the Steelers. But on the other side, Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons, a major, major stinker at home. Alex, I've made one of my bold predictions this year that Michael Penix would be the best quarterback on the Falcons. Cousins goes 16 for 26, 155 with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Do you think there's any chance that I'm right about that and that Cousins is cooked?
No, I would
overreaction. Okay.
I would pause on that for a minute. Now, I will go back to the Steelers quickly, though. TJ Watt, is he the most underrated defensive player in the league still? And he's a top 3 player. Man. He's unbelievable. Yeah. And he should have had 2 more sacks that were negated by penalties on his team that weren't him. So the fact that you have, and we talked about this in the first segment with Dak and Dallas, you can run the ball 140 yards rushing. You play defense the way they did, and you turn over opposing teams. Your quarterback play doesn't have to be elite, at least to win regular season games. And it's something that, listen, Justin Fields, people in Chicago may look like people in New York watching Saquon walk and then watching, Justin Fields walk, not to the degree, but Justin Fields may be the best quarterback in that room. All he has to do is not turn the ball over and have 250 all-purpose yards a game. It doesn't matter where he gets it from. 14 rushes today. That's a lot. As long as you keep the opposing team's offense off the field and you can move the ball down the field, 6 field goals got it done, and you got to give him kudos over there.
Hey, as the Steelers say, the standard is the standard, and this is exactly why they pull these kind of games out. What an incredible revenge game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Arthur Smith and Justin Fields. Excellent story there. There are some stories that aren't so great, though. Our worst of the week, a lot of young quarterbacks in the NFL struggled mightily. Do want to let you guys know, though, that Locked On NFL is now brand new, and it's 2 shows every day. First, you get me, the madman, Tyler Rowland, to kick off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then head to the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Tony's going to talk about a team in the AFC North, the Cleveland Browns, who may have made one of the worst trades of all time. You're going to get local experts from Locked On, unprecedented NFL insights, hot opinions, of course, all in under 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL. It's twice a day. Make me, the madman, Tyler Rowland, and the barber, Tony Wiggins, your first listen or second listen. New Locked On NFL. Do want to let you guys know, though, that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, period. Period. They have the best features in the industry, and now they have a new feature to make your experience even easier. It's called Game Time Picks. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. You add that to the panoramic view from your seat, so you always know what you're going to be looking at when you sit down. The all-in pricing feature, with which if you just toggle it on, you're going to see exactly what you're going to pay, which is hard to find in the industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Alex, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We talked about domination by the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. We talked about Tyreek Hill's crazy experience. Talked about the disease of me in Cincinnati, the Steelers getting revenge. Now it's time for a segment that I plan on doing every Monday here, the worst of the week. Again, this is the new Locked On NFL. Me, the madman Tyler Rowland, the barber Tony Wiggins. Make sure to make us your first and second listen each and every day. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But Bryce Young was miserable. And again, you get the week one overreactions, and there are some things that are overreactions in week one, but not everything. I think that saying is overblown. Some things in week one are exactly what they are. And I think that Bryce Young not being a good NFL quarterback is one of those things. We're going to hear from Julian Council from Locked On Panthers, and it sounds like Julian's getting close to agreeing.
What do you want me to say? Where do you want me to start? How are we going to spin this to anything other than the Panthers just got dog-walked in New Orleans? That was embarrassing, y'all. And it truly is disappointing that any sort of optimism and encouragement that folks got from that one drive against the Bills' second team went right out the window on the first play of the game. It was a disaster for Dave Canales. It was a disaster for this offense, but primarily it was a disaster for Bryce Young.
Oh, man. There's no other way to color it. A 47-10 beatdown. Bryce Young goes 13 for 30, 161, 2 interceptions, sacked 4 times. He had a 32.8 quarterback rating. He had a 10.7 QBR. Alex, I don't care if people think it's overreaction week one, overreaction Monday, this and that. Bryce Young is not a good NFL quarterback, and some other young quarterbacks did not play very well, but it is clear that Bryce Young at number 1 overall was a massive mistake. CJ Stroud, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Anthony Richardson didn't win and made a few mistakes, but looked okay. Taking Bryce Young over both of those guys, I mean, they even took Bryce Young over Caleb Williams, who we might hit at here in a second. But imagine if you look up as a Panthers fan and you realize we traded away DJ Moore, Caleb Williams, and multiple picks for Bryce Young, who might be the worst quarterback out of the top 4 quarterbacks selected in his draft, and he was selected at number 1 in a massive trade up. I mean, what a disaster.
Makes the Herschel Walker trade look like a good one. You know? I mean, this is like,
it's up there with that one.
So the only redeeming quality for where they played and when they played was New Orleans in the Superdome week 1. It is a very tough place to play for the majority of teams to go there. Even Tom Brady struggled playing there his entire career. With that said, I would have given a better performance than he did today. Like, here's the thing. So they added Deontay Johnson, who's one of the best possession receivers we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, an absolute target monster. He's an Adam Thielen light. You know, they added, they reset the guard market with their signings this year. They've done a lot of things to improve that team. But if the head of the snake ain't it, the head of the snake ain't it. And I think that you still need to wait. You know, you're going to wait until week 7, week 8 to really determine if they got to bring Andy Dalton in, to put the best product out there. Not because, you know, Bryce Young's hurt or because he's struggling. Like, Andy Dalton may be the best option. Like, this is something that you and I, during the last formation of Locked On NFL, when the trade happened, were like, How is nobody in Carolina seeing that this is a massive mistake? Not just the trade up, the target for the trade up. It's like, what? Because CJ Stroud didn't score well
was
on the
clearly the best quarterback.
You're going to go between the ears instead of the actual the actionables in a college football game that's not just him playing at Alabama. Like, what are we doing here, guys? This is of no surprise to me at all. But he's still young. We'll still see it's a new offense. We'll see if he can get some momentum going. It's a very tough place to play in week one with a new offense, a new head coach. You got to give him credit for that.
And the last thing we're going to hit here on today's Locked On NFL is an OT win by the Detroit Lions. They knock off the Rams in a thriller on Sunday Night Football, 26-20. Let's go to Matt Derry from Locked On Lions.
There was some rust, there was some sloppy play, but in the end, the Lions get it done and get the victory. 26-20 in overtime. They walk off the Rams on a David Montgomery 1-yard touchdown run. Lions spent their entire time in overtime on their one drive, just pounding the Rams on the ground with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Give credit to the Lions offensive line and to offensive coordinator Ben Johnson for calling the right plays and going back to what the Lions do best, which is grit and grime and physicality, and that's exactly what they did to win this football game. It was not a masterpiece at all from the Lions tonight. That is for sure. The Rams had their number on numerous occasions, and the Lions nearly blew a 14-point lead, led 17-3, came back at a Jake Bates field goal late to send it to overtime. They win it 26-20. More coming up on our Locked On Lions post-game show, wherever you get your podcasts, and right here on YouTube.
All right, Alex, here's what I'll say. Out of all of the NFC contenders, out of all of them, I think coming out of this weekend, let's see what the 49ers do on Monday Night Football. But coming out of this weekend, you might feel most confident in the Lions. With Jordan Love's injury situation and the Packers maybe, fighting an uphill battle there. Philadelphia looked good, but do we trust Philadelphia? I don't know. Dallas looked good like we talked about earlier, but Dallas always finds a way to blow it in the playoffs, it seems, in the last 30 years, I guess. So we'll see what San Francisco does, but if for some reason the Jets look good and knock off San Francisco, could feel most confident in the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a team that, they were half away from making the Super Bowl last year. Like, if David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs stay healthy, I see they could be a more, well-rounded team than even the 49ers. Like, depends on what Jared Goff, the mistakes that he makes. But one thing that Brock Purdy has is Christian McCaffrey. It makes it easier when you're handing the ball off to somebody who's elite like that. Now, they have two split guys that do what Christian McCaffrey does, and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. But for me tonight, the big one for me is Jameson Williams. Like, if he's healthy, Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't have to be a 20-target monster like Cooper Kupp was today for the Rams. Then you have Sam Laporta. Then you have Khalif Raymond. Then you have you're cooking with every level of offense. Yeah. Plus, one of the best offensive lines in football, not to mention everything they did on defense today. So they could be looked at as the deepest team in the NFL if everybody stays healthy throughout the year, or as many as possible.
Well, Jameson Williams was the thing that was supposed to set him over the top. That's why they went and got him. You know what I mean? That's their outside receiver with deep speed. It complements everything perfectly. Like, that was the one piece. And then it didn't look like it was going to happen for Jameson Williams. And look, week one overreactions. We're not going to act like Jameson Williams is a star, but a lot of people were projecting a breakout for Jameson Williams, and then he delivers in week one. I believe it was 5 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. Absolutely makes some explosive plays, and he was like the one element that they were missing, and that's why they went out and got him, because it seemed like it would be a perfect fit. Losing Josh Reynolds, they added some pieces on the practice squad like a Tim Patrick and stuff like that, but Jameson Williams, and we got to mention, the young cornerback, Tyrion Arnold, had his issues, but him and Carlton Banks at corner, the Lions are most certainly improved at that position. So they improved in the positions they needed to. And the one breakout piece that they were waiting on offense may finally be here. And that's a dangerous thing for the rest of the NFC.
I mean, and you got to root for him too, which is just so annoying on the other side of it. It's like the fans deserve it at this point.
Yeah, they get a little bit of that early Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills magic where everybody just wants them to do well with the Dan Campbell situation. They're just a likable team at this point with the team history. But that is going to do it for our first Monday recap, Locked On NFL together. A clash with Clancy, always a great time. Make sure that you guys tune in every Monday for this. I'll be back with you tomorrow to look at some more Week 1 overreactions. Are they real? Are they fake? Lauren Cox will be here to discuss that. And make sure that you step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins later on today. He's going to be talking Browns. He's going to be previewing the Monday Night Football game. You're not going to want to miss that. So I am your host, Tyler Rowland, here with my co-host, Alex Clancy. As I tell you guys, always stay safe out there, and I hope you all enjoyed the football.